Hi, everyone. Carl Mulbauer here, and we are live from Texas. I want to thank everyone for joining. Today, we actually have a guest who is actually going to be joining us shortly, uh, and we're going to talk a little bit about anxiety. Um, and she actually does some really great work and deals with anxiety from a little bit different tack than I do. But the funny thing is, and the truth is, that you know, anxiety comes in different ways, in different shapes and sizes and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to introduce Tina, Tina Wiles from mytutor.com, and we're going to have her join us right now, actually.
Hello.
Hello, Tina. How are you today?
I am good. I'm going to move this over here so I could see you where my camera is. I am good. How about yourself?
Cannot complain. Here in Texas, boiling hot here, a little different than California. Um, but it's actually been a good trip. I just actually got back from the eye doctor. So, you know, I think you know already. My wife and I we lived in Texas for quite a while in Houston, and we still have some ties to the community here. And one of the things is actually we go still see our eye doctor. So yeah, she kind of hooked us up, kind of took good care of us and everything, and got some new contacts in. She said, try these out for a change, and I'm like, okay. So
Well,
so
nice.
yes. So how's your day been and everything? You're coming from Chicagoland area, correct?
Yes, I'm from the Chicagoland area. A good day. I just had a student and have some more students later. And I went this morning to my local Chamber of Commerce is doing a 4-part series on digital marketing.
Oh
So
wow.
I have today was all about creating your marketing strategy. So now I
Okay.
have a huge to-do list after my training this morning.
Well, that's good. I mean, it's, any kind of resources, especially working as an entrepreneur, solopreneur and stuff like that. Anything that you can get to kind of move the ball forward, I'm all for as well. And I've been playing
Exactly.
with some I've been playing with some new software and stuff like that as well. And it's been actually pretty good. So it's been helping me out.
That's awesome.
So so let's talk a little bit. You and I talked a little bit earlier this week about this and kind of in preparation and everything. And it's kind of funny that we both work with people from an interview standpoint or from a testing standpoint that have to deal with anxiety or stressful
Mhm.
situations
Yeah, like high
and
pressure situations.
high pressure situations. And in the work that I do, my whole thing is trying to make sure that people come across as professional and knowledgeable and all those things. And it's kind of funny because when we started to talk, we talked about, you know, there's so many similarities to what you're doing in working with your clients and what I do with my clients. It just makes a lot of sense. So tell me a little bit about what you do with your clients and a little bit about, you know, you know, how you work your people or help them work through their anxiety from a test taking standpoint.
Absolutely. So I I consider myself a high stakes test expert, right? So when you're talking about the testing to get certification or licensing, so whether it's in the world of HR or any of the companies that that right that you might be looking
Yeah.
at, especially your audience has a lot of people like in transition, right? And so moving to new careers, you might have to go through certifications or licensing. So I work with those as well as like ACT and SAT and any kind of high stakes testing.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer that yes, content and strategy are part of taking these types of tests, But a part that is often left out and not talked about is the mindset and the anxiety that results from that. And that's where we have so much crossover between
Mhm.
the stuff that you talk about and the stuff I was listening to last week's week working hour, and I was like, exactly. You're like, everything you're saying. I'm like, yep, this is the exactly the stuff that applies to all anyone.
Yeah. No, it again, I don't think I don't think a lot of people put that emphasis on, the mindset and doing that. Everyone gets very focused and fixated on knowing the facts and having all those things down. Like you said, it's really important. You need to know your stuff. You need to know, you know, you need to know your stuff and you need to be able to articulate it.
Hmm.
But so many times, especially when the stakes are really high, and I have brothers-in-laws that, one's a lawyer, one's a nurse, and both of them had to go through this testing thing, and talk about really high stress and the amount of time they spend on studying and doing these things. It's the same thing as an interview. And
Hmm.
so many times people they just and this is what kills me. They go in and they wing it.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, "Oh, yeah, I got this, and it's fine." And they wing it, and I'm like, "No, don't wing it. Please don't wing it." Um, but yeah, no, it's truly one of those things where people need to realize that there are things that they can do to put themselves in the right mindset, to put themselves, reduce that anxiety, reduce that stress, do those things to make them feel comfortable when they go in there like they've got this.
Exactly. And you talked about winging it, right? So if you're walking into an interview and you're like, I know this, I know my stuff, I'm going to talk about what I know, and you're
Mhm.
winging it and not doing some preparation beforehand, that's when you're walking in the office and you will be anxious. And it's because you didn't prepare, right?
Yeah.
Like so many things are out of our control. You might as well take control of the things we can, like what you do beforehand to prepare.
Yeah. And I have to ask you, how many people come across your doorway, and the reason they're coming there is they actually winged it the first time or the second time and then realized, hey, maybe I need to get some professional help here.
Yeah, quite a few, right? And on the certifications and licensing exams, for a lot of them, the passing rate is 50%.
Wow.
50%. And no one talks about it, right? And it's because, like, someone is going to be, they want to be a nurse, and everyone around them knows that they have gone to school for nursing. And then if they go and fail the exam, they don't want to tell everybody, I just failed the exam I spent all this time in school for. And
Oh
they,
yeah.
I mean, they just like, okay, I need to take it again. And then when they pass, that's when you hear, yeah, I passed, right? But you're not hearing about what's going on before that.
Yeah, and I'm sure, when they go through the whole process of going through the testing and doing those things, if they don't pass, there's a certain level of shame that kind of comes along with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And that just drags you down even further.
Mhm. Yeah. And it's like same thing with some people not telling everybody like interviews they're going on, right? Like I want to wait until I know, like I could say, "Hey, I got this job," because you don't want
Yeah.
everyone asking, right? "Oh, how did it go? How did it go?"
Yeah, that or don't jinx it.
Mhm.
Don't jinx it.
Yeah.
I feel good about this, but I don't want to jinx it. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that a lot of my clients, I think, have when they start out, and by the time they come to me, they're usually in the point where they're like, okay, I've kind of put myself out there, and it's just not working. Something's not working, and it's you know it's very similar to what the testing world is in the sense of the licensing testing and stuff. Once you go and you pass it, it's done, it's over with, and that's it.
Hmm.
And it's I always tell people this, the whole interview process is predicated on failure. And you fail, you fail, you fail, you fail, and hopefully you do better each time, and you learn things and you make changes and do that. But once you get an offer and get the job search is over.
Hmm.
And it's totally contrary to what we learn in school, what we learn in life, that
Yeah.
as you practice more and as you do things, you get better and you become more proficient in doing those things. And honestly, the way things have changed in my world, from what it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, forget about 20 years ago.
Right.
It's the world's changed a lot.
It has, it has, and it's kinda counterintuitive, but for people that don't want to be sharing information about, like, upcoming interviews or I have this test coming up, I go through specific things that you could do, like, part of mindset for me, I think, is trying to control the pressure that you're under, especially in these high stakes areas, is actually to share with people what you're doing, right?
Mhm.
Because everyone, like, if you don't want to tell people you're going for an interview, everyone has had interviews of jobs they haven't gotten, right?
Yeah.
It's people can, or if they haven't, they've had other things that haven't gone like they wanted them to, right? Like, people can empathize with you and, like, help you if you didn't get it, or here's what I did before this interview and it really helped, or right, like, you can
Yeah.
have conversations with people about it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's so much shame attached to not doing well on an interview, not doing well on a test, and doing those things, and it just honestly it ends up bringing you down, and it brings
Mhm.
everything down. And sometimes your greatest source of support and your greatest source of having somebody just be there and listen and just taking some of that weight off, you're not letting them in, you're not letting
Yeah.
them be part of the process.
Yeah.
And that becomes really problematic.
Yeah, especially because if it's, say you don't wanna tell anyone and you don't get one job and you're still not saying anything, you're putting even more pressure on yourself for the next one that you go to, right? Like, you're building your own pressure
Yeah.
instead of trying to control it yourself.
But let's put it this way, I know from my own experience and everything that kind of some of the things that I've gone through the interview process. And again, I teach this stuff. It's there's a lot of wild cards and a lot of things that go into interviewing. And my job is trying to take as many of those variables out of the equation as possible, just so that to be successful. But even I know from my own interviewing, when I was in corporate and doing those things, I mean, I would prepare and I would do all those things that I would do. But one of the things I always did was I stopped for a minute. And as much as I wanted to make sure I had every piece of knowledge down that was on my resume and all that, I would stop like the night before. I wouldn't look at anything the day of. And I would just use that time to compose myself, listen to music, do different things just to get myself in the right mindset
Yes.
and bring the nerves down and the anxieties. Because the truth of the matter is, I am, you know, I'm the son of an immigrant. I put enough pressure on myself to do that. And a lot of times, what ends up happening is what I've learned over the course of my life here is if I bring down my anxiety, if I bring down my nerves, where I'm like, okay, I know this stuff. I'm confident. I have the skills and the abilities to do this. I just have to articulate it in a way that they understand and check for understanding. I'll be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and at the end of the day, I do a debrief and I say, hey, maybe I need to, what could I do better? What could I do differently and all that? But in the end, I try to bring the stress down.
Yeah, and that the listening to music, like good pump up music, I think about like pregame music
Hmm.
or workout, right? Like, um, and the positive self-talk are also things that you can do to help control the pressure. A really easy one is anxiety, nervousness versus excitement, right? And our body has the same reaction to either one of those situations, right? It's the same
Hmm.
chemicals that are released in our body. So instead of thinking about it as I'm nervous about my interview, think about it as I'm excited for the interview.
That's really interesting. I never looked at it from that standpoint of, oh, it's the same, it's the flip side of the same kind of coin
Yeah, it
type
is
of
that
thing.
literally.
And yeah, and I guess putting yourself in that frame of mind, saying, I'm excited about the opportunity is a
Yeah.
lot different than I'm nervous about putting myself out there kind of thing.
Hmm. Yep. There's some really cool YouTube videos like TED Talks on nervous nerves versus excitement, but it really is two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. So tell me a little, well, why don't you tell everyone, don't tell
Yeah.
me, tell everyone a little bit more about, uh, My Tutor, kind of how you got into doing this work.
I have a very odd background for doing this kind of work. So, my
Okay.
degree is actually in engineering, in industrial engineering. I went to the University of Michigan, and I worked for Motorola for 9 years, manufacturing cell phones, like ancient, like original flip phones, 90s, everyone was like, I'm getting my first cell phone. That was when I worked at Motorola. Um,
Okay.
and when I started having a family, worked there still for about a year, and it just wasn't a good fit. I had a 2 hour commute one way.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was
Oh.
like, yeah, this isn't going to work. And so I was trying to find a passion of what I could do. Never really intentionally left engineering. It just kind of happened. Like it was a time a lot of things were being outsourced out of the country, and I didn't want to have to do a lot of travel. So a friend asked me to tutor her son in college level math, and I'd always thought about teaching someday. And I tutored him and fell in love with tutoring, right? Like
Mhm.
the light bulb going off and taking something that was for this kid that I helped, like I said, he was in college. He had tried taking this math test or this math class twice, failed it both times. He was so in his head about how horrible math is and how hard it is. And we went through and talked about it. And all of a sudden he was like, this is how easy it is. Like, yeah, this is how easy it is, right? It's just taking the mystery away.
Mhm.
And so I found a passion for tutoring. And then almost immediately, I ended up getting into standardized test prep. So a lot of ACT and SAT. I make myself sound like I'm so old. I'm not that old, but back when I was
Yeah.
young, ACT and SAT, like you took them, but it was more of a like go to bed early Friday night because you have the test on Saturday, right?
Yeah.
And now it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and each of the tests are given 7 times a year, right? So yeah,
Tina, I will tell you, I mean, when I took the ACT and the SAT, it was like that. It
yeah,
was going to test prep for those tests. They had it,
yeah. They
but
had it.
the, ma- the majority of people didn't do it. And it was like, oh, okay. And I think maybe a lot of the pressure that's on students today to perform just wasn't there when I was going through it. Or if it was to a much lesser degree.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, it's kind of funny. I look at the university I graduated from, and I don't know if I would be able to get into it now.
That's how I feel about me too.
You know, it, you know, I went to a state school, like you did, and everything. It was, to be honest with you, it was really at the time was a really good school. Still is a phenomenal school, but yeah, it's the competition to get in is
Yeah,
so great, and they only have a certain amount of spots.
exactly.
And yeah, so the stakes are a lot higher.
Yeah. So I've been doing ACT and SAT stuff now for almost 17 years. I developed a framework that I use with students, and it goes through the content and the strategy, but also the mindset. And then about a year and a half ago, I was approached. A friend of mine happened to work for a group of mortuary colleges. So, yes,
Okay.
mortuary colleges, teaching funeral directors and embalmers. And because I had done standardized test prep, she reached out to me because their students were struggling with passing their national board exams. So,
So let me get this straight.
yeah.
In order to process a body, and in order to basically have somebody go to their final resting place, the
Mhm.
person that's doing this is not only trained, but they have to pass a national certification for it.
Yeah, so and some of it varies from state to state, but there's 2 3-hour exams. Okay, so
Okay.
one 3-hour exam for embalming and one 3-hour exam for funeral directing. And the amount, so when I start, I've worked with them now for a year and a half, but the amount of information that they need to know for these exams is mind blowing for people that are not
Oh,
familiar with the industry at all. I mean, you're talking all the science of embalming and the some they have to do a little bit of pathology sometimes, and then the art side, like restoring, it's called restorative arts, like if there's an injury, how to make it so it looks realistic for a wake, or right, like
yeah.
it's unbelievable. But anyway, so what I found out though is that the framework that I created for helping high school students, obviously I don't know any of the content that's on these national board exams, but it's the same strategies and mindset work, and applied them. And those there was a group of 3 schools,
Hmm.
had for the first time in 7 years, they were above the national averages for the test. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so we saw huge improvement, and so much of it, because it's a test that about 50% of people fail. Um, it wasn't. I mean, some of them it's the content, but for the
Okay.
most of them, it's the anxiety. And a lot of these, um, like the exams, the certification ones, they're taking at test centers. So not only is it like a 3-hour exam, but you're going to a test center. They basically do like a strip search to make sure that you don't not bringing anything for cheating. So no water
Hmm.
bottles, right? Your phone, all that's locked up. And then you go down this hall and you sit in a room surrounded by all these people. You take your 3-hour exam, and when you're done, it pops up on the screen and says whether you pass or fail.
Oh, that quickly.
Yeah. And then it's a couple $100 if you have to retake it. Right? Like, so it's, yeah, so just the thought of going in and having to do this is so
Mhm.
overwhelming, right? That you want to put it off, and then the longer you put it off, the less likely you are to pass. Like, yeah, so
Oh,
I've had an interesting journey.
no, it sounds like a really interesting journey. So, kind of related to what you had given as your kind of your journey. So you were responsible for the StarTAC, weren't you?
Yes. I'm so impressed that I manufactured a lot of StarTACs.
Yeah, no, I had a couple, uh, and then I had the one right after the StarTAC. It almost looked like a Star Trek communicator.
Yeah,
It was narrow,
the
silver.
Vader. We called it
What?
Vader. The
Yeah,
house name for it was Vader. Yeah.
and you flip it up, and I've got a big hand here, and I'm holding it
You're
with
like, hello?
it's like, hello, how are you? And
Hello.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like that. And now we've come full circle because my first cell phone was like uh, it was the size of a brick,
Yeah.
and
So
it
the whole
and it
brick
was
one. Yeah.
yeah, it was
We actually called
odd,
them a brick.
yeah, it was mostly battery, and oddly enough, it was it just was it was yeah, it was ridiculous. And now everyone's got an iPhone or an Android or something
Yeah.
like that, and it's lighter and thinner than some of those earlier ones. But yeah, I I had some of those products,
Yeah. I programmed the machines that place the pieces on the circuit boards.
okay,
And then
cool.
worked with after the boards were all done, like the assembly of the phones. So the plastics and antenna and keypad.
Okay.
Yep.
No, it's small world, really is.
It
So so
is.
so Tina, what are some tips you could kind of give the people that are viewing this now or doing this maybe a little bit later on, because again, this is
Yeah.
on all the different social media, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and all that. So people will watch this at their leisure. What are some tips that you can kind of give them to kind of reduce that anxiety, get them in the right mindset, and get ready you know for their interviews and get ready for their tests and stuff like that?
Absolutely. So, my first recommendation would be to trust your instinct. Okay.
Okay.
Trust your gut, which some people do really good at. And chance if you're feeling some anxiety, you're probably questioning your gut, right? So, your instincts. So, we actually process billions of information, billions of bits of information every second. Our conscious mind can only process 40 to 50 bits per second. So we're bombarded with information all the time.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is processed subconsciously. Okay. So what that means is, so like the perfect example I like to think of is like the temperature. We can feel the temperature all of the time, but you only think of the temperature when it's too hot or too cold. So basically, it's like your subconscious saying, "Hey, I'm uncomfortable. Do something about the temperature," right?
Yeah.
Um, and so when you're going through and you're preparing for your interview, or right, like so you're going to get questions that you didn't expect. You just need to trust your gut and say what comes to mind, right? Like trust that you have all this knowledge within you.
Yeah.
Um, right? Because you're not, it's not necessarily that you're consciously thinking about it. So, like firemen are a really good example. There's a study that was done of firemen when they were leaving, like before a house would collapse. And they would ask the firemen, like, how did you know it was time to leave? And I just knew, right? It was time.
Yeah.
Well, when you dive down into it, it's they're picking up all of the signals from around them that they've seen in the past that tell them that it's getting bad and they need to leave. So they're just like, I just knew to do it, but it's really all these things that are like signaling things in their body to say you need to get out.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times we forget our brains are one of the most sophisticated computers out there, and we're getting from all our senses all this different inputs and stuff. Yeah, it must be the hair on the back of their neck kind of thing where,
Yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah.
I need to go.
Yep. Yeah. So trusting your instinct will help. Silencing your inner critic. So you talked a little bit about like saying like the positive things to yourself. Um, when we're in situations that we're not comfortable with, we do feel a lot of doubt. And how you're talking to yourself is really important. The
Yeah.
power of the words that we use and the energy that those words carry is more important than you think. So as you're going through and talking to if you catch yourself saying like, I don't even know why I'm going to this interview, I know I'm not going to get it, you need to stop what you're saying, right? Like
Yeah.
catch yourself, stop, and rephrase it. Like, you know what? I'm going to try my best at this interview, yeah, maybe I won't get it, but it's practice of going through interviews, and it's something that I'll be developing skills, right? So, like, basically, you need to rephrase it into something that is true, something that you believe.
Yeah.
Almost think about it as you're talking to a best friend or a loved one, right? If what you're thinking isn't something that you would say to them, then you can't say it to yourself.
It's so true. And I think sometimes, you know, we're so unkind to ourselves that we would never, ever be that way to a friend or a loved one or even a stranger.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we would just never we wouldn't talk to people that way, but we talk to ourselves that way. And, when you were talking just now, it brought up something that I kind of remembered. There was a time where I just was not feeling very confident about myself. I wasn't feeling really I just was not in a good spot.
Hmm.
And I remember when I used to bump into people, I would say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I would go, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And, part of it is I'm a big guy. You know, I bump into things, I bump into people. But all of a sudden, it just dawned on me, it clicked. I'm like, wait a second, what am I sorry for? The proper word is excuse me.
Yeah.
It wasn't intentional. I was, again, what am I sorry for?
Yeah.
So that's really a great thing, a really great perspective to look at it from that standpoint.
Yeah.
What you said you had another one?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like a third one of what to do.
Yeah.
And that's the controlling your pressure. So we already talked on a couple of those, right? Like the listening to music, thinking about it as excitement instead of nerves. But another thing that you could do is if you find yourself overthinking, okay, there was a study done that if you're overthinking, um, it's so you like the left side of our brain controls the right side of our body, and the right side of our brain controls the left side of our body. And the left side of your brain is typically like the logical, like analytical side, and the right side is considered like more artsy, like free flow, right?
Yeah.
So if you're overthinking, they did this study with people getting ready to take their golf swing, right? Like kind of getting in their head and overthinking about it. They had them squeeze their left hand, just squeezing their left hand,
Okay.
because it's supposed to activate the right side of your brain and pull you out from overthinking.
Oh, okay.
I have no idea if that actually works. Like I said, there was a study on it, and of course, the study was like, we swear. But in my opinion, if it's anything that just you're just acknowledging that you're overthinking, it's gonna
Yeah. Good point. Good point.
help.
So, Tina, I know that you sent me a link
Yes.
for something that may help people with their anxiety and reduce the anxiety.
Yeah,
It's a meditation, right?
it is.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the meditation is? And I'm
Absolutely.
actually gonna flash it up here so everyone can see the little QRC code and everything. So,
Awesome. So, what this meditation is, it's a guided meditation. So, I talk through, it's less than 5 minutes, but I'm talking through specifically some breathing exercises and visualization exercises for you to do before an interview. So basically, like a pre-interview meditation. So you
Oh,
could do it like leading up to one. You could do it in the car before you go in for an interview, or if it's virtual at home beforehand. But um, if you can listen to it every day for a week or whatever, like whatever's going to help you. But it's pretty short. Like I said, it's less than 5 minutes. And hopefully you'll feel more relaxed and confident after you listen to it.
yeah. No, I think this is phenomenal. I mean, it's something that I do. I just try to quiet my mind down and just to think about, you know, try to vision the end instead of what I'm about to go through. So what the end result is going to be, and
Mhm.
kind of just quiet all the noise and all the things around me, just to say, okay, you know, you've got this. So this is great. This is fantastic. Everyone, if you want to go and you want to download this meditation, I highly recommend it. You just have to scan the QRC code right underneath us there. Just scan it, and then it'll actually take you to the website where you can actually go and download it. And if you
Yep.
want to find out a little bit more about what Tina does on a day in, day out kind of thing, if you go up into the corner right up here, you'll actually see another QRC code for our website.
Oh,
So
thank you.
yeah, no, definitely. Tina, I really appreciate you coming on today and
Oh,
talking about
I'm
this,
just
because
thrilled. Thank you for having me.
honestly, this is, you know, like I said, when you and I talked, it definitely, I was like, wow, there's just so much overlap and so much of the things that you do and I do. It just made, it just made 100% sense.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's yeah, I was also amazed at the overlap. Thinking about it afterwards, I was like, I should have realized that there was the overlap, right? But um no, it was huge. And for those of you that are not normal meditators and you're like, this is weird and I don't know how to do it, and right, like you have to keep your mind clear or something. Oh, so this is a guided meditation. So what it is you just listen to it. It's my voice and it has some soft music playing in the background. And all you have to do is listen and breathe. So it's pretty
Yeah.
easy. Yeah.
And I think that's one thing. I think you brought up a good point about just breathing. Most people forget that you
Yeah.
need to breathe.
And that's actually to uh, from the fight or flight response that our body goes into when we're in stressful situations. The first thing that changes is that, thanks to years of evolution of like, we're not like, we might still think a saber-toothed tiger is chasing us kind of thing, right? So our body goes into like the survival mode and we start to breathe shallow. And
Yeah,
breathing shallow is what makes your heart rate increase and you start to get sweaty or like the butterflies in your stomach. All that is because you're breathing shallow. So if you
yeah.
start taking some deep breaths, you'll feel better instantaneously.
Tina, I will tell you, the first time I actually did a live stream, I was breathing real shallow, real shallow. This was definitely out of my comfort zone and stuff.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, now I'm like, oh, okay, this is good. I actually enjoy doing this. So
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. So I don't consider myself a speaker, but the just sharing what I love, yeah, I'm not nervous at all anymore.
fantastic. Well, Tina, thank you so much for joining us this week. And, you know, everyone, again, I would check out mytutor.com. You can go and you can check right up here. You'll see the QRC code. Just, you know, take your camera out, scan that. I'm actually going to bring up the meditation again. Pull out the camera, scan it. It really, you might feel that this is a little bit new age or a little woo woo and stuff like that. But I will tell you, you know, it's something that is so powerful in just getting you into that right mindset, that it makes a world of difference. So
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on.
not a problem. And Tina, you have a wonderful day.
You too. Enjoy Texas.
I definitely will. Tina, take care. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, bye.
Bye. All right, everyone, we've got some housekeeping stuff to do. Um, Again, just want to make sure that people out there know that, we are, there's a lot of things that we're working on, here at the you know, the working hour here. So let's start off. And again, if you want to find out a little bit more about what I do, I just changed the QRC code. Just go up, you can scan my website and you can go there, find out a little bit about how I help people get over their anxiety and over some of the obstacles they run into during job search and everything. Uh, One of the things that I strongly suggest is, you know, download my masterclass, and it's the three things you can do to prepare for a possible job change or layoff. And a lot of times we don't think about these things ahead of time, but we need to start to think about them ahead of time when you say, "Hey, I'm going to make a change in career. I'm going to make a change in my job," or if it's something where you're kind of hearing rumblings in the background, and my former Twitter people, you probably saw writing on the wall kind of thing. Um, but there's certain things that you can do to kind of get yourself prepared and get your ducks in a row before something happens so that you're not scrambling beforehand. And last but not least, I think one of the things that are really, really powerful is, you know, if you are having issues or you're having problems, get help. you know Find somebody that's a professional that can help you navigate these things. I do this for people. um, I will tell you what I normally do is I want to find out a little bit about you and a little bit about what you're about, and then customize a solution for you. And I'd start that off by an informational meeting. So if you want, you can scan the QRC code. It goes right to my calendar. I keep it up to date. So if people tried to book for today, it wasn't happening because I'm out of town. But again, thank you very much for joining us this week. Tina, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and sharing the things that you do and how you help people. And again, it's amazing how there's so much cross similarities between what Tina does and what I do. Uh, I'm just so grateful that she took time out of her busy schedule to kind of share this, and then also share the meditation with you all. So have a wonderful day. We'll see you next week, where I will be back home again, and we will see each other then. Take care and bye bye.